just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin'Minds. Welcome. My name is Ebuka Obuchi, and thanks a lot for joining us. It's another Sunday, and we're here to discuss our many issues here in Nigeria. We've had a not too noisy week in the political front, economically as well. It seems that things are a little quiet. We've had a good run of a couple of months where we've heard from the central bank governor or the minister of finance telling us the plans and what they're doing to stabilize the naira or the economy. The naira seems to have found its footing around 1,500. It looks like for a couple of weeks now. Stability is one thing, but the figure is still quite scary for a lot of people and businesses in particular. Mr. President was in South Africa in the past week to witness the inauguration of the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa. We're hoping that some things have come up from that discussion. Nigeria and South Africa have shared very close bilateral relations in the past, but things seem to have tapered down in the last couple of years. I mean, both countries are going through quite a tough economic time, so hopefully they can lean on each other and start to look inwards in the continent for things to start working. But we're going to be looking at a lot of issues this afternoon, talking about Nigeria's developments and steps that we need to take to build the Nigeria that we want. And I'm joined here now by Adetunwa Adebogun and Onyemoche Ibezim. Thanks a lot for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know we're talking of air, and like I started the show, it looks like we talk a lot in Nigeria now, about how things are and how we need to fix things. And the one thing I've always said is that there's no shortage of ideas or solutions from Nigerians, it always seems like. Do you ever get the feeling that, we just keep talking and nothing is going to change? Are you at that point? Because a lot of Nigerians are there now, where it feels like, what is the point of all of this? Do you think Nigerians have got into the disillusion point where it feels like hope is no longer as strong as it used to be?
Well, I think what I notice over time, and as you mentioned, currently is the fact that Nigerians are less optimistic about what is actually going on in the country. I say that because even judging from so many things that's happened, well, I think this week has been a little bit, let's say soft, not too tense. So it looks more like people are actually talking, but there's not much when it comes to results, when it comes to actualizing. And, they always say something that, let's stop talking, let's start acting. Let's begin to see the actions that will come forth from our talking. So when agendas are set, what happens? The results should follow, but we are not seeing much of that. So there's so much, a lot of, black and white, but we are not even seeing something that is evident to say, this is actually working for us. And so it has actually dampened the spirit of a lot of Nigerians.
When you look at the way the government is set up today, this president came in with a lot of promises, and we are a year past the inauguration of his presidency. All the talk about, the plans that he had. And going back to your points, why does there always seem to be a disconnect between words spoken and actions taken? Is it solely on the politicians who are not delivering, and Nigerians as a whole doing something wrong that's making this thing not work?
Well, I think we can start from having accountable leadership. What it means is that people are elected into positions of power. You feel that they know the pulse of the people. And once they get into that position, they actually forget where they are coming from. That is one. Then if you look at what we've been having, the scenarios we've been having, there's not really been a lot of transparency. Not just in terms of the policies that have been made, but even commitment to stewardship. We don't find that. We find out that at the end of the day, some things, spring up and you're wondering, was this actually the statement that came out from so-so person? Well, we're seeing something different. So I feel that a lot of issues with leadership is one of our problems in Nigeria. And when the leadership is not right, that the followers too would also follow suit. And what it means is that when you have bad leadership, you also have bad followership. And with that, we are actually going backwards. Talking about, we just talk, we are not doing. I remember while growing up, do what I do, not just what I say. I want to see the action following what you are saying. So I think we really have a lot of leaders who come out to give us agendas, they give us policies. At the end of the day, they don't back it up with results. And then you tell the people, oh, be patient, make some sacrifice, and they are wondering, but this is not actually the kind of leadership we want. They are not even setting examples. They just say it, but they are not doing it. Let's look at the example of what is actually happening economically right now. We are talking about tariff being high. We are talking about high food, cost of food in the market. We are talking about the fact that people are finding it difficult to even survive on a daily basis. And then you hear your leaders. That is when they come up with agendas that support their own selfish interests. And you wonder, are these the kind of leaders that we feel that they should also meet the yearnings of the people? It's really sad because we don't see a lot of actions. We don't see a lot of exemplary attitude from our leaders. And it's also more disappointing because if you look at the population of Nigeria, we have a lot of youths. And they are wondering, these people, they tell us that we can't get there. But they are there and they are not doing it right.
I mean, I still can't wrap my head around the price of tomatoes. That one in particular is still unbelievable. But she mentioned you then. I want to come to you now about the youth. You know, we've seen pictures and videos in the past week of what's going on in Kenya with the protest against the government, and they were trying to raise taxes, and young people have taken to the streets, and it's been quite intense, you know. And people have been saying, oh, are we ever going to get here in Nigeria? Not that anybody's advocating for protests, you know, but that sort of citizen engagement. People say, oh, but it happened with the NSAS. Now, my question is, with the way the NSAS protests ended, right, and the sort of disillusionment you see from young people since the last elections, it feels like there's a certain disconnect now. Most people are not really interested in engaging anymore with politics. I mean, you see the occasional tweet here and there, but in reality, most young people you find are trying to leave. Find their way out. Is that a sense you get that, you know, we have gotten to that point where young people, especially because a lot of these things are going to be driven by young people, whether we like it or not. In the past, with the military, young Nigerians did their part. With the fight for independence, young Nigerians did their part. So the youth will always be important in a time like this. Do you find that we're losing that?
Well, I don't think we're losing it. I see more youths being interested in politics and also being interested in what the government wants to offer. But the call for youth participation in politics has always been there. And the truth is, if I must say, where the youths participate in politics more is usually on social media. They don't participate in the real politics, and that is where they are getting it wrong. So if we can have more real youthful participation in politics where the youths join political parties and get their cards, participate, join, contest for elections, and when you win, then you find you now sit back and watch people criticize you just like you are criticizing others on social media. So I think the youth should participate in real politics, not social media politics.
But then there's the counter argument, right? That on the one hand, the way politics is set in Nigeria, nowhere in the world is it done the way we do, where there's literally no access to anything. It's extremely expensive to be a politician, whether it's local government chairman you're running for, even a councillorship. We know how much money and godfatherism that exists. So to even crack that is difficult. Secondly, you also have the fact that, you know, people who have tried have come back and told stories. The ones who have gone in, we've seen that because of how, I hate that word, the system is set up in Nigeria, you have to fall in line at some point. We've seen governors who were the youngest governors in this country turn out to be disastrous at what they've done in their state. So, as a young person watching that, where is the incentive to do what you're saying? To say, okay, let me even do this. Where are the funds? Who do I go speak to? Are the political parties open to young people? We literally have people running for office in their 70s. These are guys who have been in politics for the last 40 years, refusing, quote unquote, to leave.
Yes, but the thing about that argument is youth participation in politics should not just be about being in the political parties. On your own corner, you can be doing the right thing in terms of, you know, actively assisting. You can support people who are also in politics, bring out ideas. You can write articles about these things, and it's not just about, you know, actively being in the political parties as well. So, and also, if you go back to history, you will find out that most of the people who are occupying political positions, who we tend to call the elderly in politics, started from when they were young as well. So it's a thing of mindset, like I said. Not everybody wants to be in politics anyways, but I think if we actually want the change that we are asking for, we can be the change.
I want to talk a little more specific now, and I want to go into education, because the one thing that I think I find with any country that has turned around their economy is the fact that they focused on educating their population. And I think the one thing that comes to mind the most is Asia. We've seen Asian countries go from literally being peers with us and turning things around to becoming even developed countries just because they focused on educating their people. Nigeria has the most out-of-school children around the world. I think it's around 20 million. That's 10% of our population. If you look at the population of young people, it's about 40% of the young population. We see it everywhere. You drive around Lagos or anywhere in the country, you just see young men sitting and looking around. And the fact that government and people in authority don't see that as worrisome, or if they do, they're not doing anything about it, is a little mind-boggling, you know. It seems like a very long-term fight that needs to happen. But at the moment, what are some of the things that jump at you that need to be done, you know, to start fixing this? Because it's inevitable that if we don't fix this, it's going to crack at some point.
Well, let's look at the angle of making use of the population and what you want to actually put into that population. You mentioned Asia countries. I think over time, they've been able to try to target the skills they have. Look at technology. Whether we like it or not, science and technology is the best bet for us. We can actually talk about disadvantages of social media. But you see, you mentioned the fact that we have a lot of engagement on social media. We can actually turn that around to empower our youth. And there are so many, you know, sectors right now that without science and technology, they are nowhere to be found. And that's why you find a lot of commercialization on social media. Aside that, we have come to the age whereby Nigeria should go beyond where we are right now in terms of technology. We have seen advancement in other countries that they make use of technology to actually bring in a higher percentage of revenue for their GDP. What is Nigeria doing? So it's not just talking on social media. What advantages can you get on social media? And then we've gone to a stage whereby we have internet, we have computers. Are we bringing this into our curriculum? You mentioned something about the fact that there are young generations. We still have younger generation in different schools. Are we trying as much as possible to invest in that particular aspect when it comes to education? Of recently, we now see empowerment in the areas of vocational studies. You find people now, oh, I don't just want to go to school. I want to have something that I can actually fall back on. Vocation is not getting something attraction. It's getting a lot of move right now. We can actually put in technology in that. And then it starts also from us investing as a nation. People find it so difficult when it comes to agendas and implementing them. We can actually start doing that. Once we're able to do that, we get more younger generations into that technology fold. And then we talked about the fact that we have STEM. How many students can you find under that category? Only now that we have corporate organizations coming up to say, oh, we want to promote STEM. What is the government doing to promote STEM? And that is one key area where we can have the younger generations. I also feel that, yes, youth, they want to come out, they want to mobilize for a different cause. What cause have they mobilized in the last, I think, Tinubu's admission is 1 year. What cause have they mobilized except NSAS that we know? This is the time where they can come together. He mentioned something. He said, you don't have to, be voted for, but there are other things that you can do in your community as a youth. You start from there. Once people recognize that you are making impact in your community, it's not just jumping and saying, oh, I want to vie for a position. Let your impact be felt in your community. Then when you come out, people can reason and say, oh, this guy has actually done something. This lady has actually done something. But we want to sit back, let the Godfathers give it to us. And they are not willing to step aside anyway. So it's going to take us a long time. But when we decide and make up our minds that it's not just about us talking, action should start now. And what I mean by action starting now is for us all to understand the fact that the political terrain in Nigeria It's still the way it is. It's still the way it has been. And you need someone that is strong to be able to navigate that. And if you don't start from somewhere, of course, godfatherism, you can't remove that. You will have that in terms of financial opportunities that will come with it, and then the backing you will get. If you are in a political party and you don't have a godfather, you are nowhere. We've even seen women that have contested under different political platforms. At the end of the day, when they get to a particular stage, they ask them to step down. So what we are saying is this. As a youth, you start from somewhere. Get yourself involved in your community. Get involved in that political party. Don't just say you are in that political party because you want to contest for a particular position. You must be active. You must have impacted your community. You should be able to engage youth like yourself. Say, this is the cause we want to go for. Let us all come together. From there, even the elders, they will say, okay, this is actually a promising child. Let's support him. But before we get to that stage, it's going to take a lot of effort.
I'm going to come back to that point because, I mean, the constant question is how do you hold government accountable? And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have. We have, over the years, had governments that basically does what they want, whether we like it or not just this administration. Nigerians say one thing, I mean, look at how the national anthem thing is still mind-boggling to me. You pass this thing in 2 days, it got signed the next day without a public hearing. How do you then tackle a government like that just does what they want, you know? But we'll come back to that. I want to ask you now, because when this present administration was about to turn a year, you know, there was talk about maybe there was going to be a cabinet reshuffle and all of that, and certain ministers' names popped up. And the one question, I'm very passionate about this education thing because I feel like it's very key, and whether it's skill development or actual universities or whatever. And someone said, who's the Minister of Education? Most people don't know who he is. A year in. And that's one of the most critical sectors of Nigeria. I'm sure you don't even remember his name now if I ask you who he is. That's how sort of docile he has been. But, you know, you think of when he was appointed, it seemed like a square peg in a square hole. Professor Mamman Tahir, he was former DG of the Nigerian Law School. He was a VC of Bayes University. He's a professor. He should be in the right space. Nothing has happened in that sector in a year. What, as a Nigerian now, are you supposed to do in a situation like that where you know there's a critical sector that needs saving? The president has done nothing to fix or call the minister to, or I don't know what needs to be done. But we're just here, watching and sitting and waiting. What do we do?
Well, I'm going to answer that particular question in providing suggestions for both the public and the private sector in tackling education. Is a very critical area, just like you mentioned, that we need to focus on. And I'm going to say, one, we need to train our teachers more. When you look at it, you will see there is a lot of focus just on the infrastructure aspect of it. Yes, it's very good for us to improve the infrastructure in the educational sector, but then what of the teachers? Are they actually qualified to occupy the position that they occupy? And also, we need to invest in technology for education. There need to be more investment in technology because, I mean, if you'll agree with me, technology rules the world today. And also, when you look at the curriculum that is being used in the educational sector today, you will see that the curriculums are actually outdated. We need to revisit those curriculums to see how we can update them to international best practices. I mean, this is not rocket science anyways, but if there is focus, if there is interest in that area, I think there is more that could be done to, you know, improve the educational sector. Yeah. I mean, it's something that everybody should be interested in, and also I think the government can also bring in the private sector. There should be public-private sector partnership in improving education, because everybody is running to the private schools now. Why? Because, I mean, they want quality education for their children. What is in the private schools that is not in the public schools? That is what the government needs to look at, and also bring in the private sector into it to improve the educational sector.
I want to quickly wrap up with the question I said I was going to ask, but I'll start with you and wrap up with you about holding government accountable. Yeah. Like I said, nobody's calling for protests, but there has to be ways to say, okay, this is what you promised us. You have not delivered. Do we always have to wait for elections to say, okay, we'll wait 4 years until we can vote you out or whatever it is? How do not just young, how do Nigerians hold government accountable in a way that government actually answers?
You did make a mistake when you said young people. I think it should be championed by the younger generation. And the reason why I'm saying this is we have the energy to do it. And one idea that comes to my mind is, in your ward, in your own community, in your society, that your small society, there is someone there representing you in the House of Assembly. There is someone there representing you in the Federal House of Assembly. There is someone there representing you in the Senate. You can invite them. We are inviting you for a meeting so that we'll know where we are. The promises that you made to us, the promises that was made to us before the elections, we need to know how far have you gone with these promises. Because they might have to actually have reasonable excuses why they have not met the promises. But we need explanation so that we know that we are holding you accountable. That's one suggestion I think that can work.
I don't know if you saw a video that went viral over the week. It was an interview that was here on Channels Television on Politics Today. Shehu Kimbalo interviewed a senator and was asking him about these cars they bought. And the senator, you could see almost arrogance in the response and no remorse. And his point was, well, we need these cars to deliver our constituency duties. 140 million naira cars. People are literally buying a quarter sliced yam in the market now because nobody can afford full yams. Now that's where the average Nigerian is. And the senators are doing this. Now these questions have been asked. The video's gone viral. The senator still didn't feel any need to apologize. I guess that's my point. So in a situation like that, so am I going to sit and wait until he's tied up for election again? Now know that this man has been in the House of Representatives for 2 terms, got to the Senate the year after, and you wonder, is that what Nigeria is?
Well, I think the problem starts with after election. People are voted into appointments in different offices, or they are even appointed by the president. I mentioned earlier, they forget where they are coming from. And what happens is that we allow them to live large. We allow them to, just exhibit the fact that they are there already and there's nobody that can bring them out. In other questions, in other climes, the government don't really have much say. It is the people that call their leaders to order. But in Nigeria, it's a different policy entirely. Our leaders dictate to us. You can imagine a lot of issues with food and everything. And they are actually, even if you look at the budget, the salary, you wonder, newspaper, whatever, this, you wonder what kind of leaders we have. Because we have refused to operate a system whereby we hold our leaders accountable. Stewardship without accountability is zero. And what it means is that they are not selfless leaders. They're actually after their own pockets. And until when we begin to say, after your election, we will continue to follow up on you. And of course, who can hold them to ransom when we know that even those that have embezzled our funds, they walk about on the streets. They are even appointed into positions of power. So you wonder, where do you want to start from? Because that is the bad policy that we have been operating. People are not held accountable for whatever it is that they do.
Sad, sad, sad. We love Nigeria as much as the next person, and we all just want it to work. And I think that's the way I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
And the conversation will always continue because Nigeria will always be ours. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Get with you. Don't just stand there.